Hello everybody, welcome back to launch week, day 5. And today we have a very special guest, Matt Boyle from Golang Insiders. Great to have you on, Matt.
Yeah, Andre, it's great to be here. Nice to see you again. It's been a little bit.
Yeah, Matt and Encore, we go way back.
Yeah, I still remember. You were sat in a cafe and you just called me like, "Hey Matt, I've seen you've been using Encore. Can I have some feedback? Like, how are you using it? Like, what do you think of it?" And this was a couple of years ago now, right? And like, I loved that. It's very rare for like a founder to reach out and like actively take that feedback on board and stuff. So I've been poking around Encore ever since because I think that level of engagement was awesome, and it's not something I'd seen from a product like yours before. So I loved it. And also you did take my feedback on board. I remember I was talking about like the way the log worked, and I know that got upgraded in like more recent versions. So I'm going to take credit for it, even though I'm sure there was lots of I was probably just reinforcing a bunch of research you'd already done ahead of times, but I'm going to take credit for it.
Yeah, you should. All user feedback is super valuable, so very appreciated. And since we started chatting, you've founded Golang Insiders. You want to tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so I am permanently online, especially on Twitter. And Twitter released a community feature. It wasn't that long ago, right? Maybe like in June or something like that. And I made a community straight away, and I started sharing it around, and it just exploded in growth. And I think there's nearly 6,000 Go members inside the Go community at Twitter now. And one thing we've really sort of doubled down on is trying to make it like as friendly as possible and as helpful as possible to beginners, because there's a ton of Go communities on the internet that maybe aren't as friendly and welcoming of beginners as I would like. So that's something we've really leaned into with Golang Insiders, and I really like how the community is growing. Like, the engagement's great. We've done some virtual meetups and stuff too, one of which you presented at, Andre, so thank you so much. So it's been really nice to be a part of, and I've really enjoyed getting to be more part of a friendly and growing community. So if you wanna come chat about Go things, ask any question you like, no matter how beginner or basic, and just generally meet like-minded folks. Like, you can find if you just type in Golang on the Twitter in the community section, we're number one because we're the biggest one. So we're very easy to find.
Yeah, I mean, it's especially when you're learning Go. I feel like you always benefit from just having access to more sort of places where you can ask questions, pick up on what other people are asking, and just sort of immerse yourself in how people are using Go. I found for me, when I started writing Go, like, one of the most helpful things was just reading the standard library and just immersing yourself in how you can express certain things. And I think Golang Insiders really serves as a more sort of reading the standard library is maybe not the most exciting thing in the world, and it's not really the sort of code that you yourself are writing. So having a place where you can ask questions from like-minded individuals is fantastic.
Yeah, you also learn a bunch that way too, right? Because I learn from people ask good questions, and I'm like, I didn't even think about that. I didn't know that because I've never really thought about it. Like, for example, today there was a really good question about can you assign priority to Go routines? And I didn't know if that was possible or not. I was like, I've never really thought about that. So I went digging, and I found a Google group between the Go team discussing it in 2016, and they shared why they didn't implement that. And stuff like that is great. Like, I never would have thought about that, and it's a really good question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So for those who are watching, we are gonna kick off the stream, and as you see, we'll be your hosts for today. So it's myself, Andre. I'm the founder and CEO of Encore, as well as Matt, founder of Golang Insiders. I want to say the best Go community on the internet. How about that? You heard it here first, perhaps. So if you're tuning in and you want to ask a question, feel free to do that whenever. If you're watching on Twitter or LinkedIn, then head over to encore.dev/launch week to ask your question so that we're monitoring those sections. If you're watching on YouTube, then just pop it in the chat and we'll see that as well. And ask your question whenever. We'll pick up useful questions throughout, and we might hold some questions for the end if, when it makes sense to sort of take it at the end. So just keep the questions coming, and we'll get through them as we run along. So with that, let's get going. So to recap the week, so this is day 5 of Encore's very first launch week, not the last, spoiler alert. And today is a very exciting one. We both have our launch, which we're going to get into right away. And then we have Matt with us to talk about the award ceremony for the Encore and Golang Insiders Hackathon that's been running over the past week and a little bit more. So that's super exciting. So to sort of recap what we've launched over the week, the most exciting, I want to say, was on day 1, we launched Encore for TypeScript, and we have a whole sort of presentation on encore.dev/launch week where you can read all about this. But to sort of recap what we did, we took Encore, which is a backend SDK and development platform for building cloud backends, and we announced that we now officially support TypeScript as our second language, and that includes the fully open source backend SDK, as well as a brand new runtime that's been written in Rust. And what's so interesting about that is it integrates with Node.js, which means that you have full compatibility with the Node ecosystem, while at the same time getting a lot of type safety benefits because Encore actually parses the TypeScript type information and then makes that available at runtime. So you get some pretty incredible performance benefits from this approach. So for sort of common backend use cases, you can have as much as 7x requests per second, minus 85% response latency compared to standard Node.js and Express web server. And because all of this is powered by Rust, the Encore package that you use has 0 NPM dependencies. And this is pretty useful because it packs a lot of functionality into something that, well, there are no dependencies, so you don't need to worry about the sort of security aspects of having a bunch of sort of unaudited dependencies, and you get a lot of faster build and application startup times. So tons of really valuable performance gains and improvements from this approach. And of course, it brings the whole package of benefits from Encore to TypeScript. And if you want to try it, it's generally available. So check it out at encore.dev. It's free to use and open source. So for day 2, we launched a whole new price plan, which makes for much more sort of accessible entry-level pricing, especially if you're a small startup. And we launched a whole set of tools to make it much easier to self-host Encore applications, including a bunch more documentation on how to do that. We also extended the free plan, so it now supports unlimited seats. So if you're using Encore for self-hosting, you can still benefit from using the Encore platform free plan because it gives you a lot of benefits, especially around sort of collaboration benefits and API documentation and that sort of thing. Next up, we have day 3. So we launched a partnership with Neon, which is a serverless Postgres provider. And what we did here is we brought all of those benefits, including things like dynamic scaling and branching, to Encore Cloud and Encore's built-in preview environments. And this makes a really, really powerful workflow where you can use Neon for hosting your production database or your test environment database. And then when you create a pull request, Encore will branch that database off your test or production database so that you actually have access to real world data for testing in your preview environment. And yesterday we announced a partnership with Arden Labs, which is probably the most well-known and biggest sort of Go training and staffing company. So Bill Kennedy is going to be teaching his ultimate course, like Ultimate Go course, and that will be with Encore. So he's developed a whole new course that is sort of taking the concept of his Ultimate Go course and is now offering that with an Encore spin on it.
It's been a real pleasure to watch Bill sort of create this live as well. I've seen him tweet a lot about it and share some of the learnings he's had about how to build great software by following some of the patterns Encore provides. And he's done a couple of podcasts about it. He's like just super pumped about it. And I, as a general rule, don't bet against anything that Bill's excited about because his energy is infectious. So it's been awesome to see this.
Yeah, he's a real sort of energy spreader, as you say.
Yes.
So we also offer Elevate with Encore, which is a program to help conference speakers sort of level up their speaking game. So we also have a discounted Go training, which means that if you want to take Arden Labs Encore Go training, then reach out to us and we can give you some nice discounts on that. So on to today's event, which is day 5, and we called it Something AI. We figured we couldn't go a whole week without, doing something in vogue. So for today, we are very excited to announce the Encore AI API creator. And this is a prompt to production approach to designing and building API endpoints. And this is live now as of 10 minutes ago. So if you're running Encore, just update to the latest version and try it out for yourself. It's available for free. And then on the Encore Pro plan, you have unlimited use of this. On the free tier, there are some usage limits just to prevent abuse, but do try it out. And without further ado, I'm going to do a live demo. This is extra exciting because you never know what the LLM will do. So we'll see how this goes. So I'm going to share my screen.
Conceptually, I love this. This potentially means I can build an entire Go app with my voice, effectively, right? That would be awesome.
Yeah.
So,
we'll see. What you think. So, Matt, you haven't seen this at all, right?
No, I tried to get Marcus to leak some of the launch week announcements to me, but he was holding firm.
Yeah, he's a bit of a wall sometimes. So this is Encore. Here we have just a demo application, which is Encore's uptime monitor. And just move this out of the way. And what you have here is it's a ready-made example, so there's nothing new in this particular example, But what we have here is, this is Encore's flow diagram. And this is a simple application for monitoring websites to see if they're up or down. So you can head over to the front end here, and you can add websites, and they'll be tracked. And if the website goes down, you'll get a Slack notification because we have this Slack service. And that's all good. But what we've added now is, if you open Encore, we have this AI lab. And here we have, you're probably familiar with a prompt these days, but essentially this is a way to design APIs for using in your Encore application. So let's say that we have this Slack integration, but we want to add a Discord integration so that we can be notified on Discord. So we can say add a Discord service that mirrors the Slack service. And what's going to happen is you can see how fast this is, first of all. And that's because Encore, by virtue of being so standardized, we can actually optimize exactly how we're using the LLM to be able to sort of minimize the amount of text text generation that's happening behind the scenes. But notice that you're not getting sort of a chat window. You're actually getting this is an interactive UI where you can actually modify. You can add additional endpoints. You can change the names of things if you don't like the proposed design. So here it says, okay, I propose we add a Discord service that has a single endpoint that will just notify Discord with a message. And I think this looks good. This is exactly what we have for the Slack service, as we can see here. It's just a single endpoint with a notify endpoint. That's exactly what the LLM has proposed. So I'm going to go ahead and click next step. And now you can see that now we're getting to the next step in the process, which is designing the schema for this API. And here you can see that immediately it just streams in a proposed schema. And this is, again, extremely fast compared to just, opening up ChatGPT and just typing things or whatever. You can see it proposes a path parameter with the channel ID and a parameter here. And I think that looks good, except I'm going to go ahead and delete this. And, oh, no, it actually complains. So this is like so. And now you can see that as soon as I remove this path parameter, it updates the code here on the right. It also has sort of taken all of this proposed schema and documented it, which is exactly what we want. So I'm going to go ahead and click next. And now you can see here on the left that you have all of the files that will be written to disk. So this is exactly what we want. So I can just hit save to disk. And if I go back to my editor, you can see that Encore has now generated all of this code for me. And I can just start to implement this. And of course, there are tons of ways you can implement it. You can, we can just, in this case, we can just mirror the what we have here in the Slack service, or we can do something else. So in this way, Encore is really helping you sort of design API endpoints and quickly shipping them. Now, maybe we want to do something else. Maybe we want to create something that's a bit larger. So we can say, add a new service with CRUD endpoints for a personal blog. And what you'll get is it will come up with a proposed design. So here we have create, read, update, delete, and list. I think this looks good, but we don't need the read to be require authentication. We don't need this to require authentication. So I think that looks good. And we'll click next. And now it will stream in the implementation and proposed schema for all of these. And here you can see it. This is sort of the create request. This is the response. I think all of this looks good. You can see as it's streaming in. And what's nice here is you can see that for this read, it's actually reusing the same type that was defined on the create.
The thing I really like about this as well is if you did want to create a blog, or even the Discord one you showed a second ago, is some of the going back to some of the questions we get is like, how do I get started? Like, I don't know how to build a blog. I don't know how to build a Discord bot. And it gave you some really good clues there, right? It's like, most Discord stuff has a channel ID. That gives me something to jump off and go and figure out what a channel ID is if I didn't know. This blog and this blog service here gave some really reasonable insight into what a good CRUD app would look like for a blog, and it also even suggested auth immediately, which is really, really nice. So I think this is really powerful, and then you could even use this as a contract, right? Generate the contract, someone else could go and work on another service knowing that you've kind of generated this together and it looks reasonable. It seems like a really, really fast way to iterate. I like it a lot.
Yeah, exactly. And especially we've designed this around this sort of back and forth where you'll get something that is reasonable, and then you have the ability to tweak it before you sort of move forward to the next step. And I think that approach is really powerful. So you can see it's even suggesting sort of, here are some error cases that this endpoint handles. And then once you have this, you hit save to disk and it will just recompile. And if we go back to the service catalog, we can see we now have a blog service, we have a Discord service, and we have all of these endpoints. And that's the power of Encore, is that because it's also standardized, it's very easy to do all of this, and you get automatic API documentation. Everything is beautifully rendered, and it feels like it's not just something that you just threw together. It's actually high quality code that you can really build on top of. Like you say, it's a jumping off point that doesn't, even though you're using an LLM to generate this, the output is high quality. It's not just throwaway code. So that's the Encore API creator. It's live now. Check it out. We've had this in private beta for a while, and we've started to see people using this not just for building new things, but also extending existing services. It's really quite powerful once you start to see how you can use it in lots of different cases to move even faster.
And you get some good feedback from your audience as well. So Anna says, well, I was wondering what you had for day 5, but I must admit I did not expect this one. Amazing stuff.
That's amazing to hear. Yeah, it's AI is perhaps in vogue, but we thought we could take an Encore spin to it and turn it into something that really leverages the standardization that Encore provides, and turn that into something that really helps developers do their job in a more effective way. So with that, if there aren't any more questions about this, we'll move on to the next section. Do check this out. It's available for all Encore users, and we'd love your feedback. We're of course going to keep iterating on this and turn it into something even more powerful, but we think even what we have right now is super valuable for designing and building new API endpoints. All right, let me share my screen again. Go back to the presentation. All right, So, Matt, are you ready for the prize ceremony?
Let's do it.
So, we'll be the judges. And to sort of recap, we've hosted a hackathon together with Golang Insiders. And we have essentially 4 or 3 different categories and then a grand prize. And the 3 categories are, so the first category is the uniqueness of idea. And here we really wanted people to be creative and come up with something that, brings some sort of creativity to building backends. It's not just CRUD apps, right? You can do anything with software, and I think having something that's a bit out there is what we're looking for here. Next category, creative use of Encore. And here we wanted not just about the idea and what you're building, but we wanted to see people using Encore in creative ways. And finally, less about the idea, less about Encore, and more about how you can use Go in interesting ways. There are certainly Go is very well known for sort of building cloud and network things, but we want to see is there a unique spin on how you can use Encore to use Go to do something. And those were the categories. Then we had the grand prize, which is where the judges, where our little bit of discretion came in, and what's the sort of overall most prize-worthy hackathon project. And in terms of prizes, we have, for the grand prize, we have a Sage Barista Pro and 1 year of Encore Pro. And this is it's a coffee maker that it's sort of bean to cup, and some people here in Encore HQ is using this as their daily driver, and we've heard from others in the community that they too love this. What's your sort of preferred coffee maker, Matt? You're not a Sage Barista Pro yourself, are you?
No, I do have a bean to cup machine, but when I saw this was the prize, I kind of regretted being willing to judge, because then I couldn't enter, because I really want this. This is great. There seems to be a big overlap, I think, between developers and coffee lovers. It seems to be, they go in the middle of that Venn diagram. So I think this was a big driving factor for a lot of people entering. I think it's a great prize. I remember Marcus and I were talking about prizes, because originally we were going to do like a laptop, and we just realized how stupid that was. It's like, we're going to ask people to program using their laptop to win a laptop. And so I think this was a much better prize suggestion by Marcus, I have to say.
Yeah, absolutely. And then for the category winners, we have 1 year of Encore Pro, and then we have the ultimate guide to debugging with Go. Matt, you want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah, so this is a course I created and launched in February, I think. So the basic premise is that over the course of my career, I've learned tons about debugging from other people, way more experienced than myself. And it really is one of those things that's best learned from someone who's got experience in it, I think. And you can learn all sorts from like pair programming with someone or working on really hard problems. So I basically just wanted to take all of my learnings and put them together into like a curated course, if you will. So this is sort of aimed at sort of junior and mid-level Go engineers who are just kind of looking to improve their skill set, and especially debugging is a loaded term, because I think when people think of debugging, they think of the debugger, which I do cover in the course, but we also talk about some of the things that actually you get for free in Encore, like distributed tracing, some things like profiling, Prometheus, various metrics, things like that. So this will help you sort of level up sort of measurement and observability of your Go apps and debugging. So that's why I created it. It's been really popular so far. I'm actually turning it into a book at the moment as well, so you can have it in written form too. But I think I hope the people who win it get some value out of it, and they can combine it with Encore Pro subscription to hopefully launch a new SaaS, and maybe in this time next year we will we'll see some people building some really cool stuff on top of Encore, because I think all the people who entered here are capable of very, very, very good things. And so if they can use us two things together to build something awesome, I'll be super happy.
Yeah, I mean, debugging, like you say, it's not just like, here are the tools, now you know debugging. It's a whole sort of mindset and a way of thinking about sort of how what's the most, like, what information am I lacking that will sort of bisect the problem space, right? Like, how can I most quickly narrow down on the problem here? So I think it's super useful, and I think it's something that every programmer can get better at, because it's such a big part of our daily life as a programmer is figuring out why something isn't working the way you would expect.
I'd love to one day. We should do another session, Andre, where we can watch you debug, because you operate, like, when you're building Encore, I imagine you're operating at just a level lower, deeper than most of us ever will. So I'd love to see how you approach some of the problems and things that you have to do to get Encore's Go fork to work in the way you want it. Like, I think that'd be a really interesting thing to see.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Let's do that sometime. All right. Well, without further ado, we have some nominees, and I have to say there were a ton of good submissions, so this was not easy. We went back and forth quite a bit on what nominees to pick, but here are the nominees. If we had a soundboard, we would do a bit of a drum roll, but
I'll tap my microphone, but I don't know if that'll sound horrible, so I'm not going
exactly. So for the very first nominee, we have Valhalla Race Room dedicated servers. And this is the Encore flow diagram. So this was a very interesting submission where they built a project to essentially manage servers for a virtual sort of racing simulator. And this was what I found really interesting about this submission is, well, first of all, the authors are scratching their own itch and they're building something to solve a problem they're having. And it's a very sort of real world project that is, trying to solve something real, and they took it really end to end. So I think this was super interesting. It opened up a whole new world to me that I wasn't aware of, that this was a thing.
Yeah, I love this submission for exactly the reasons you described. I think I love people who use software to solve their own problems, as you said, scratching their own itch. And I think for if you look at the diagram here, and this is a pretty complicated, by most people's standards, distributed system, right? But they were able to spin this up with Encore in a week. Like that, I can see the first commit is like literally a week or so ago. And I just think that's super impressive. It just shows how productive you can be with Encore. And I think they use a lot of really interesting Encore and Go features well here. So I didn't expect this submission. Like some of the submissions we got, like all of our submissions were excellent, but some of them were sort of, I guess more what I expected was like CRUD apps, to do various bits and pieces, which, that's probably what I would have entered to, because I don't think I'd be creative enough to come up with a solution like this. But we got some, like this one especially, like I think it's such a good idea, and I just love that they were, I wonder if I could do that, and then went ahead and did it.
Yeah, absolutely. And for the next nominee, we have the Discord community management bot by Preslav and Lucia. So Matt, why is this one of our nominations?
Yeah, so I thought this one was really interesting because, well, one, it's Encore related, right? They saw a problem in Encore and went to fix it with community management. Generally, this is an issue close to my heart. We've been talking about Golang Insiders, and community management is one of those things that's much harder than it seems. I think there's, especially when you start to get to volume, you get lots of ads and bad actors trying to join in. You have to organize things. You have to tag topics, remove topics, moderate. it can be a lot of work. And I think the only way to really scale that, especially if it's not a full-time role for you, is to use a bot. So when I saw this, the first thing I thought is like, I want this. Like I actually want this tool. And there's some really nice features that it supports. So it identifies questions and tries to pull them out. It categorizes forum posts. It maintains an index of unique forum posts. And you can configure conversation alerts. So, for example, if I was to use this, sometimes I get people posting sort of like spammy ads in my community, and if I could like alert myself or maybe even remove them automatically, that would be really powerful. So Twitter doesn't currently support this yet, but it's really great to see that Discord does. And I imagine off the back of this that Andre, hopefully you'll be looking to maybe move forward with this and potentially even deploy it, because it seems super helpful.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what stood out to me as well, is the fact that, well, it's a real thing, and it's solving a problem that they saw with Encore's Discord community. I mean, I think it's super interesting. It uses LLMs to sort of classify what is a question that sort of not just any question, but something that is more support related. And I think that's especially when you have large volumes of text, it can be a real challenge to sort of figure out and it not only identifies questions, but it attempts to answer them as well, which I think is super interesting. And it's a pretty sophisticated system. This is the architecture diagram for it. And I mean, it's a very event-driven application, and I mean, who knows how I mean, setting this up without something like Encore would be, well, I wouldn't want to do it myself.
Yeah, I really like. I think especially for chat applications, doing things event-driven like this make a ton of sense, because one message might be read by multiple things, or it might be relevant to multiple things. You might get a sudden influx of messages that you need to deal with, and it doesn't need to be done immediately. But for example, say someone does start spamming a bunch of stuff, and you do want to deal with them and flag them all. Having a queue and being able to kind of work through them slowly is useful, and then maybe you'll fan that out onto different topics to say, hey, this user is more often than not spamming, so we should probably ban that person. So you can easily see a path to being able to, once now the primitives are there of sort of reading messages, putting them onto topics that are interesting, you can really see a viable path to being able to scale this out and add some really complex functionality. So, maybe as a follow-up, we could try and use some of the new AI stuff you talked about to say, hey, here's a system we have. It does this today. I want to automatically ban users if they post more than 15 times in a minute or something like that. And that would be really interesting to see if we could implement, because it seems like the system, at least how I'm looking at it, looks like it'd be very easy to add functionality such as that.
Yeah, I mean, that's as you say, that's the power of an event-driven application is once you've defined your events, and you can sort of much more easily extend and hook on additional functionality that uses the same events that you already defined. Very well. On to the next nomination. So this is N-cursors, and I guess the name is maybe inspired by Encore, but I don't know about you, Matt, but what I really loved about this is, as they put in the README here, it sort of harkens back to the golden age of the internet, where when everything was more sort of innocent and maybe less focused on, we're gonna build the next startup and make a bunch of money and everything is monetized, and it's just like, okay, let's just do something a bit weird.
I absolutely love this one. I would never have thought of this in a million years. It's really creative, and it doesn't solve a VC scale problem. It just makes the internet a little bit better and a little bit more fun. So what this one does is effectively you have a website, a static website, and for the purposes of the demonstration, Answer just added some poems on a website. And as I'm moving around it with my cursor, if someone else is to join the website, they can their cursor appears on my screen too, and I can just see what they're highlighting, what they're looking at, and what they're doing. So kind of simple in what it does, but to the point of the README that it says here is, if you ever feel lonely on the internet, you can actually see like the interaction, the other people using the same static website as you. And like I thought it was a really nice and fun concept. It gave me sort of GeoCity vibes, going back to where, everything on the internet had to be interactive and you had like banners everywhere and pop-ups and stuff. But it's like a really nice and subtle implementation of that. So I really liked this. It's really fun. The implementation of it's pretty interesting too. I sent Marcus some feedback from the person who created this, because they were trying to use Encore in like such an interesting way. Like it was like, oh, we didn't actually think about Encore being used like that. We never really sort of intended for it to be used by that. So that's really great feedback. So he also did push the Encore platform a little bit in the way he was thinking about it, which is always great too.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Next up, so we have Tractor by Herman, and what this one is it's a transactional emailer. You can see here on the top you have the architecture diagram. On the bottom you have a small front end for it, and essentially what it is it's an API on top of Mailgun, which is like a SaaS service for sending transactional emails. But what I found quite interesting is how they took that concept, which I mean it certainly is something that, if you're building any sort of SaaS application, you're aware of transactional emails. But they had a pretty unique spin on it where they integrated WebAssembly into this. So you can use, and they've built some example extensions or plugins that essentially, given an email, it passes it through a bunch of plugins that essentially can modify the email using WebAssembly. And I think this is also something, to your point, where it's just a creative application of how can you take something that maybe you've seen before, but you take a more modern spin on it. And okay, well, WebAssembly, how can we leverage that to do something more powerful? And as a result, you can build sort of customize your email pipeline in virtually any language you want and sort of build an ecosystem around that. And I think that's super, super powerful.
Definitely. I think the reason I really liked this one is it actually seems like a very practical use of WebAssembly to me as well. Like WebAssembly, was, especially a year or two ago, before we all got distracted by AI, like WebAssembly was the thing that we all thought was going to be like the next big thing. And I think it still is. I think it's got tons of like really amazing practical use cases, and sort of the promise of being able to build once and run anywhere is really, really valuable. And we're seeing that come to fruition across a bunch of different ways of doing things. But what's really nice here is this is taking a more conventional app and saying, actually, WebAssembly has a place here too. Because, one thing it's not explicit here, but is implicit by their use of WebAssembly, is by using plugins, you could write non-Go plugins here too, right? And you could compile them to WebAssembly and you could plug them in here. And technically, you wouldn't need to do anything particularly clever for the application to understand that. So this system is now extensible to Rust, to Python, to I think C++ plus has decent bindings. I think maybe TypeScript definitely does. So you could see a world where you have this really complicated transactional email system, but your front end engineers can write plugins to do the thing they need to do to transform it a little bit. And I think that's a really interesting idea and paradigm. That's proof of concept is right here, and it seems to work, which is super interesting to me.
Absolutely. All right. So we're finally here at the moment people have been waiting for, which is the prize ceremony itself. So to all the winners, we'll reach out to you and arrange for receiving your prizes. So for the very first category, it's the creative use of Encore. The winner will receive 1 year of Encore Pro and Matt's very own ultimate guide to debugging with Go. And the motivation reads, this project takes some inspiration from Encore itself. to automate infrastructure provisioning, providing an API for easy time-based rentals of AWS compute. It heavily leverages Encore primitives to accomplish a lot with a little. And the winner is Valhalla Race Room, dedicated servers.
I don't dare clap too loud because I know there's a microphone.
Exactly.
Quite a bit.
Amazing. So you want to share a bit more about why we picked this, Matt?
Yeah, I think your summary was perfect, honestly. I think I love the phrase, they did a lot with a little. And I think that's a really important message to take home sometimes when you're building systems. Like, it's very easy to get carried away and, build some really sort of complicated architecture, but you've got to maintain that, right? Whereas this solution used a bunch of really interesting and useful tech, such as like it did server-side content delivery. They used SQL Boiler to be able to generate some of the boilerplate they needed. They just used some nice patterns like transactional outbox. And they use things like Encore cron jobs, which I personally use all the time. I think they're really, really useful as an approach. And they did interact with a bunch of external services. I think for me, the big thing about this one is just how much was achieved in a space of time as well.
Yeah. I mean, they even have a whole Stripe integration.
Yeah, it's
and
crazy,
like
right?
a front end that uses the Stripe integration. It's incredible.
We've got the winners already commenting in the chat as well. Thanks for the nomination. Mine was the Valhalla Racing submission, and I regret not posting the whole flow diagram. As you pointed out, it's very asynchronous, and Encore allowed me to put a system together like that very intuitively and quickly. Awesome. Congrats, Ennis. This is a really great submission. Love to see it.
Yeah, absolutely. Next category. We have the interesting use of Go category. The price is the same, 1 year of Encore Pro and Matt's ultimate guide to debugging with Go. And the motivation reads, this project takes a basic premise and turns it up to 11 with the use of WebAssembly, enabling WASM-based plugins to be used to customize email behavior. A remarkable set of functionality with a small footprint. And given that we talked about this at length, the winner is probably no surprise at this point. So congratulations, Herman and the Tractor project. we really needed the soundboard for this. So what do you think, Matt?
Yeah, I think we covered. I think that again, your summary is excellent, and the use of WASM here for me was as I was looking through this project, I was like, this is cool, and then when I saw the WASM, I was like, okay, wow, this is really impressive and next level, and it seems like a really practical use case and implementation of it. So I think this that really sort of sealed the deal for me on this one. So really great work, and it's. I think this project can probably be referenced in the future by others, and I'll certainly be bookmarking it for when people say, how can you use WASM with Go? I'll be like, here you go. Here's a great example of how to do exactly that. So really great work, Herman.
Yeah, completely agree. All right. For the final category winner, we have the uniqueness of idea. And the price for this is also 1 year of Encore Pro and the ultimate guide to debugging with Go. And the motivation reads, this project reminds us of the early days of the internet, when interesting applications of technology was an end in and of itself. It leveraged Encore to bring some playfulness to any website of your choice with one line of code. And congratulations, Ansar and the Ncursors project for this one. I don't know about you, Matt, but for me, when I saw this project, it was like, it's not a contest anymore. Like it's too good.
It was so creative. I don't even know how you thought of this idea, Answer. Like, it almost feels like you were just like, encore, what sounds like that? What can I do here? And you just went with it. But I think beyond just the idea, the implementation is beautiful. Like you did some really nice things that were just like really nice cherry on top. So the website has some really nice poems on it. It's very well centered. It's got like really nice fonts and texts. Like the implementation is very clean, and as Andre said, it just it doesn't. It's not like some crazy technical thing that's going to sell for millions of dollars. It's just fun, and I really love to see it. So lots more of this, please. It'd be a really fun answer if we can see how many people we can get using it at once, and see if we can push Encore to its limits with millions of cursors. So maybe we'll try that.
Exactly. Answer writes, so happy. Big thanks to Andre and Matt for the opportunity. Well, thank you so much for submitting this. It really brought a smile to my face when I saw it. And as you said, the implementation is great. I mean, it's like one line of HTML just to embed it on any website of your choice. It's incredible. All right. And for the final grand prize winner, which where the prize is a Sage Barista Pro and 1 year of Encore Pro. It's almost like we planned the prize names there. The motivation reads, this project shows an end-to-end product which showcases how you can rapidly build sophisticated event-driven applications with Encore and combines it with AI to elegantly solve what's historically been a hard problem. And congratulations very much, Preslav and Lucia, for the Discord community management bot project. I mean, just a big round of applause from everyone here at Encore HQ and Golang Insiders HQ. This is I mean, it's hard to put words to it. When we announced the hackathon, I'd never imagined anything to the level of quality and polish that, I mean, a ton of effort went into this.
Yeah, the fact he was able to achieve so much in such a short space of time is really a credit to both of you. This is really impressive. It also is, it shows that Encore can be collaborative too, right? Like you wouldn't, like two people worked on this. I think this is one of the only ones where it was more than one person who kind of worked on it. But it shows that the collaboration features are there. Otherwise, this would just simply would not have been possible. Like, I think building this on sort of a more legacy tech stack in the time given, especially as I imagine these people didn't work on it full time. They likely have jobs and other commitments too, is so impressive. And as I say, I think this is something that will probably, I can imagine other people forking this and using this to build their own sort of community management bots that isn't specific to like Encore, because I think it's actually really useful, and it's a really interesting event-driven system that works incredibly well, and the architecture is good. Like I was really impressed with how well thought about the architecture is. I think it will scale pretty well. So I think this is excellent. Well done, folks. Yeah.
Very well done. And it wasn't. We had a couple more submissions that were more than two people, but I think.
Oh, did we?
I think this one, as you pointed out, it was a back end and a front end collaboration, and I think that paired off really, really well with like Encore's generated clients for the front end, and either way, really amazing work.
Nice work, everybody. I also want to call out, there was, I don't know if you've got a slide on this already, but there was I think there was about 15 or so other entries as well. I just want to call out, these are the ones we highlighted as winners, but there was some really, really good entries here, and we really appreciate everyone who took part. We really appreciate everyone who took the time, and I hope you all learned something and enjoyed the process as well. So just because we didn't select you a winner, we did go through every single project, and we played with all of them, and we looked at all of them, and this was tough. Like, they were all really good. So thank you so much, everyone, for participating.
Yeah, definitely not easy picking winners, and a heartfelt thanks for even if you didn't win a prize. We hope you learned something. We hope you enjoyed it, and we really appreciate putting in all of that effort and care into your project. And we hope, even though the hackathon is over, that if it's something that you are excited by, I mean, keep building. Encore there's a free tier, so just use that to ship anyway, and we hope to do this again sometime.
Next time with AI.
Exactly. Very well. So with that, if you have any questions for either myself or Matt, either about the hackathon or about Encore or about Golang Insiders or Matt's ultimate guide to debugging with Go, please put them in the chat. Either if you're watching on Twitter or LinkedIn, head over to encore.dev/launchweek to put in your question. But this was a lot of fun.
It definitely was. I enjoyed this. It's really nice to go through all of the entries again and just revisit them, because and it's also nice to see so much support in the comments for all the other winners as well. So it's a nice little community you've built in Encore here too. It's great.
Well, this was a beautiful symphony of two communities, Matt.
Indeed. What does the weather look like for the weekend where you are?
Well, here in Stockholm, it's actually beautiful weather outside. I'm looking out the window and it's the sun is shining. We're right by the water, and it's a beautiful day.
What does one do in the wonderful weather in Stockholm? Like when the weather starts to get nicer, like what does one do with their weekend?
Well, here in Sweden we have this, around this time of year is really when the weather starts to pick up, and the sort of winter it feels endless when you're like getting into. I mean, it was snowing 3 days ago here in Stockholm. No joke. And so when the sun comes out around this time of year, this is not an exaggeration. You can actually see people just stop in the middle of the street and just like stand and just like look up at the sun.
Just take it all
and just
in.
like frozen. It's like frozen in place. Like this is like I need to so that maybe that's what I'll be doing.
So the whole weekend will just be people stood like statues in the street, just staring up at the sun with pure happiness on their face.
Yep, pretty much.
I mean, that sounds good to me.
Very well. All right. So this was Encore's very first launch week. So that's day 5 wrapping up. A huge week here at Encore HQ with TypeScript, with Neon, with AI, with community, with I'm missing one. What am I missing?
Arden Labs training.
Arden Labs training. I mean, it's too much.
There's a lot for 1 week. You did well. It's been an action-packed week. I'm looking forward to my weekend where I'm going to generate some AI endpoints, I think, and let's see where we can get to with it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you so much for the wonderful hackathon submissions, and thanks, Matt, for being part in judging and organizing all of this, and to everyone who participated.
Thanks so much. It's been great. Have a great weekend, everyone watching.
Have a great weekend indeed. Take care.